Look at me. The voice was cold, controlled, infinitely more terrifying than the rage she'd endured 2 hours ago. Emma forced her head up, meeting the steel-gray eyes of Dante Moretti. Even in her battered state, she recognized him. Everyone in Chicago knew the name, the youngest Don in the city's history. Ruthless, unforgiving, and now standing 3 feet away, studying her face with an expression that made her stomach drop. "You have 5 seconds," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Who beat you?" Emma's mind raced. She knew the rules. She'd known them since she was 17, since the first time Michael's hand had connected with her face. "You don't tell. You don't involve outsiders. You definitely don't involve the Moretti family." "I fell," she whispered. The lie hung in the air like smoke. Dante didn't blink, didn't move. The silence stretched until Emma's heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her chest. "You fell," he repeated, his tone flat. "You fell so hard, you have fingerprints bruised into your neck. You fell so precisely that both eyes are swollen. You fell with such unfortunate aim that you have what looks like a boot print on your ribs." Emma said nothing. She could feel blood trickling down her chin. "Before we continue, please subscribe. My mom says I can't reach 1,000 subscribers, so prove her wrong." "Okay, let's get back to it." Dante took 1 step closer, then another. He moved with the grace of a predator, and Emma's survival instincts screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. She was in his world now, his building, his territory. "Do you know where you are?" he asked quietly. Your club, sir. The Inferno. I worked in the coat check downstairs. And do you know who I am?" "Yes, sir." "Then you understand that when someone is beaten bloody and left in my establishment's parking garage, it becomes my business." His eyes never left hers. "You understand that when one of my employees is attacked on my property, it's a message, an insult." "It wasn't," Emma started, then stopped. Her voice was shaking. "Please, Mr. Moretti. I just need to clean up and go home. It won't happen again." "You're right. It won't." He turned to one of the men standing behind him. "Marco, call Dr. Russo. Have him bring his kit." "No!" The word burst from Emma before she could stop it. "No doctors, please. I can't afford. You're not paying. I can't be in debt to you. I can't." Her voice broke. She was going to cry. And that was the last thing she could afford to do right now. The last thing she could let Michael's family see. Dante tilted his head slightly, studying her with renewed interest. "You're more afraid of owing me than you are of going back to whoever did this to you." It wasn't a question, but Emma found herself nodding anyway. "Interesting." He gestured to a leather sofa against the far wall. "Sit." Emma's legs were shaking so badly she nearly collapsed onto the cushions. The moment she sat, the adrenaline that had been holding her together started to fade, and the full weight of the pain crashed over her. Dante crossed to a bar cart and poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into a crystal glass. He brought it to her, pressing it into her trembling hands. "Drink." Emma obeyed. The whiskey burned going down, but the warmth spread through her chest, dulling the worst of the pain. She took another sip. "I'm going to ask you one more time," Dante said, settling into the armchair across from her. "And this time, I want the truth. Who did this to you?" Emma stared into the glass. She thought about her apartment, the 1 bedroom in Bridgeport that she could barely afford. She thought about her mother's medical bills. She thought about the nursing home in Aurora, where her mom didn't even recognize her anymore, but still needed round-the-clock care. She thought about Michael's last words before his fist had connected with her stomach. "You think you can leave? You think anyone else would want you? You're nothing without me." "If I tell you," she whispered, "he'll kill me." "If you don't tell me," Dante replied, his voice soft but edged with steel. "I'll find out anyway, and when I do, I'll be much less inclined to handle this quietly." Emma's laugh came out bitter and broken. You think this is about handling things quietly? You think there's a version of this where I walk away clean? Look at me, Emma. She did. His gray eyes had softened slightly, though his expression remained unreadable. I protect what's mine, he said. You work for me. That makes you mine to protect. Now tell me who did this, or I start making phone calls. And by morning, every man in this city who's ever looked at you wrong will be in a basement answering questions. The threat should have terrified her. Instead, something warm unfurled in Emma's chest. When was the last time anyone had wanted to protect her? When was the last time someone had looked at her bruises with anger instead of indifference? Your brother, she said quietly. Michael Moretti. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Dante's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Something dark and dangerous. My brother, he repeated. I didn't know when we met. He said his last name was Morrison. We dated for 6 months before I found out who he really was, and by then, Emma's voice cracked, by then it was too late. He said if I tried to leave, he'd have my mother move to a state facility. He said he'd make sure I lost my apartment. He said no one would believe me anyway, because I was nobody, and he was a Moretti. Dante stood, walking to the window that overlooked the Chicago skyline. He stood there for a long moment, his hands clasped behind his back. How long? He asked. 3 years. And tonight? Emma swallowed hard. I told him I was leaving. I'd saved enough money for first and last month's rent on a new place. My mom's care is covered for the next 6 months through her insurance. I thought I could finally get out. Where is he now? I don't know. After She gestured vaguely at her face. He left. Said he was going to his poker game on the south side. Said when I got done being dramatic, I should be at his apartment with dinner ready. Dante pulled his phone from his pocket, typing rapidly. Within seconds it buzzed with a response. He read it, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. He's not at his poker game. Emma's stomach twisted. He knew I'd come here. I work here. It's the only place I had to go. He thought I'd turn you away, Dante finished. He thought I'd side with blood over justice. Won't you? Dante turned from the window, and the look in his eyes made Emma's breath catch. There was fury there, yes, but also something else. Something that looked almost like regret. My father built this family on loyalty, he said quietly, but he also built it on respect. Michael has shown you none. He's used our name to terrorize you. He's beaten you on my property. He crossed back to where she sat, crouching down so they were eye level. That ends tonight. A knock at the door interrupted them. An older man with silver hair entered, carrying a black medical bag. He took one look at Emma, and his expression shifted to professional concern. Dr. Russo, Dante said, standing. Make sure she's all right. X-rays, if you think anything's broken. No hospital, Emma said quickly. Please. Dr. Russo gave her a kind smile. I have a portable machine downstairs, dear. We'll take care of you right here. He looked at Dante. May I? Dante nodded and stepped back, though Emma noticed he didn't leave the room. He returned to the window, phone in hand, typing rapidly. Dr. Russo worked gently, cleaning the blood from Emma's face and examining her injuries with practiced efficiency. He asked her questions in a soft voice. Where does it hurt? Can you breathe deeply? Any dizziness or nausea? And Emma answered as best she could. 2 cracked ribs, he finally announced. Severe bruising to the face and torso. Mild concussion. Nothing that won't heal, but you'll need rest. He looked at Dante. She shouldn't be alone for the next 48 hours. She won't be, Dante said without turning from the window. Emma opened her mouth to protest, but Dr. Russo was already wrapping her ribs with expert precision. The pressure helped, making it easier to breathe. He gave her pain medication and instructions for care, all of which Dante listened to with complete attention, despite appearing focused on his phone. When Dr. Russo left, Emma tried to stand. Her legs wobbled and Dante was there instantly, his hand on her elbow steadying her. Easy. I should go, Emma said. I've caused enough trouble. You've caused no trouble at all. My brother, on the other hand, he guided her back to the sofa. You're staying here tonight. Mr. Moretti, I can't. Dante, he corrected. And you can. You will. His phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, and a cold smile touched his lips. Marco just found Michael. He's been located at his apartment on Lakeshore Drive. Emma's heart stopped. What are you going to do? Have a conversation with my brother about respect. He'll deny it. He'll say I'm lying. Dante's smile didn't reach his eyes. I'm very good at knowing when someone's lying to me, Emma. And Michael. He paused. Michael has disappointed me for the last time. There was something in his voice that sent a shiver down Emma's spine. Not fear, exactly. Something else. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. Why do you care? She asked quietly. I'm nobody. Just a coat check girl who was stupid enough to fall for the wrong man. Dante turned to face her fully, and for the first time since she'd met him, his expression softened completely. Do you know why I built the Inferno? He asked. Emma shook her head. My mother, he said. She worked as a cocktail waitress when my father met her. One night, the owner of the club where she worked put his hands on her. She told my father, and my father handled it. But afterwards, he said to me, Dante, when you're in a position of power, you protect the people under you, always. Because the moment you stop protecting them, you lose the right to lead them. He moved closer, crouching down in front of her again. You work for me, Emma. That means you're under my protection. And I take that responsibility very seriously. Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes. I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me. My brother hurt you, Dante said simply. That has consequences. His phone rang. He answered it, listening for a moment before his expression darkened. Bring him in, he said. No, not the usual place. The private room at Russo's restaurant. And make sure he's presentable. I don't want to traumatize the staff. He ended the call and looked at Emma. Michael will be here within the hour. I want you to stay in the bedroom through there. He gestured to a door on the far side of the room. Lock it. Don't come out until I come for you. Dante. Emma. His voice was firm. Trust me. Please. And somehow, impossibly, she did. The bedroom was larger than her entire apartment, decorated in dark woods and cream linens. Emma locked the door as instructed and sank onto the bed, every muscle in her body screaming. The pain medication was starting to work, making everything feel slightly distant and fuzzy. She must have dozed off because she woke to the sound of raised voices coming through the door. She couldn't make out words, but she recognized Michael's voice, that particular pitch he got when he was angry and trying to control it. Then Dante's voice, cold and level, still too quiet to hear clearly. The sound of something breaking. Glass, maybe. Then silence. Long, horrible silence that stretched until Emma's nerves were screaming. Finally, a soft knock at the door. Emma? It's safe. You can come out. She unlocked the door with shaking hands. Dante stood in the doorway, his shirt slightly rumpled, but otherwise unmarked. Behind him, the penthouse looked normal. No signs of violence. No blood. Where is he? Emma whispered. Gone. Gone where? Dante's expression was unreadable. Somewhere he won't hurt you again. That's all you need to know. Emma's knees went weak. Dante caught her, his arms steady and sure. He's alive, Dante said quietly. For now. But he's no longer welcome in this city. By morning, he'll be on a plane to our operations in Sicily. He'll stay there indefinitely. His gray eyes met hers. He won't be coming back, Emma. Ever. But he's your brother. And you're under my protection. Dante's jaw tightened. I told him he had a choice. Leave voluntarily and maintain some dignity, or I make it public why he's being exiled. He chose to leave, quietly. Emma's head was spinning. I don't understand. You barely know me. Why would you— Because it's the right thing to do, Dante said simply. Because every person deserves to feel safe. And because— He paused, something uncertain crossing his features. Because when I saw you bleeding in my parking garage, something in me broke. The thought of anyone laying hands on you, treating you as if you were disposable. His voice dropped. I haven't felt protective rage like that in a very long time. Emma stared at him, this dangerous man with his tailored suit and cold eyes, who had just exiled his own brother for her. This man who was looking at her now like she was something precious, something worth protecting. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say you'll let me make sure you're safe. Say you'll let Marco drive you to get your things from wherever you've been staying. Say you'll accept my help finding a new apartment in a building with actual security. He reached up slowly, telegraphing his movement, and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Say you'll have dinner with me once you've healed, somewhere public, somewhere you feel safe. Emma's breath caught. You're asking me on a date? I'm asking for a chance to show you that not all Morettis are monsters. A slight smile touched his lips. Though I understand if you'd rather not. You've certainly earned the right to never want to see this family again. Emma thought about the past 3 years. The fear. The isolation. The way Michael had systematically cut her off from everyone who cared about her until she had no one left. The way he'd made her feel small and worthless and trapped. Then she looked at Dante. At the way he'd crouched down to speak to her at eye level. The way he'd believed her without question. The way he'd chosen justice over blood. Okay, she said softly. Dante's eyebrows rose slightly. Okay? Okay to all of it. The help with my things. The apartment. She felt heat rise in her cheeks. The dinner. The smile that spread across Dante's face transformed him. For just a moment, he didn't look like a Mafia boss. He looked like a man who'd been given an unexpected gift. Good, he said quietly. That's good. They stood there for a long moment, neither moving. Then Dante cleared his throat. You should rest. It's almost 3 a.m, and Dr. Russo will have my head if you don't follow his instructions. Emma nodded, but she didn't want to move. Didn't want to break whatever fragile thing was forming between them. Will you stay? She asked, then immediately felt foolish. I mean, not in the bedroom, obviously, but I don't want to be alone. Dante's expression softened. I'll be right outside the door. You have my word. And he was. When Emma finally climbed into the massive bed, still wearing the borrowed clothes Dante had given her, she could see the shadow of him settling into the armchair through the crack in the door she'd left open. The knowledge that he was there, standing guard, made it possible for her to close her eyes. She slept better than she had in 3 years. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of fresh coffee. For a moment she was disoriented, not recognizing the room. Then the events of the previous night came flooding back, and she sat up too quickly. Pain flared through her ribs, making her gasp. Easy. Dante was suddenly there, coffee cup in hand. Dr. Russo said you'd be sore for a few days. Emma accepted the coffee gratefully. What time is it? Almost noon. You needed the sleep. He settled into the chair beside the bed, his own cup in hand. He'd changed clothes, now wearing dark jeans and a black sweater that made his gray eyes even more striking. How do you feel? Like I was hit by a truck, Emma admitted, but better than last night. Good. Dante was quiet for a moment. I had Marco bring your things from your apartment. They're in the living room. I also took the liberty of having my real estate manager compile a list of available apartments in secure buildings. Whenever you're ready to look, just say the word." Emma stared at him. "You did all that while I was sleeping?" "I'm an early riser." His lips quirked. "And I wanted to make sure everything was in place before you woke up." "I didn't want you to feel trapped here." The consideration in that simple statement made Emma's throat tight. "Thank you," she managed. "There's something else." Dante leaned forward, his expression serious. "Michael signed papers this morning, official documents severing his ties to the family business and acknowledging his voluntary exile. He also signed over his apartment to you." Emma nearly dropped her coffee. "What?" "Consider it payment for 3 years of abuse," Dante said, his voice hard. "The apartment is worth about $2 million. You can sell it, keep it, do whatever you want with it. But it's yours now, free and clear. I can't accept, you can, and you will." Dante's tone left no room for argument. "Michael owed you far more than an apartment. This is the least he can do to make amends." Emma's mind was reeling. $2 million. Roughly. Dante stood, setting his coffee down. "Marco will handle the paperwork. You don't have to do anything but sign." He moved toward the door, then paused. "I'll give you some privacy to get dressed. There are clothes in the closet that should fit. Take your time." "Dante?" He turned back. "Why are you being so kind to me?" He was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes searching her face. "Because you deserve kindness," he said finally. "Because you survived 3 years of hell, and you're still brave enough to ask for help when you need it. And because..." He hesitated. "Because I think you might be the first genuinely good person I've met in a very long time." He left before Emma could respond, closing the door softly behind him. She sat there for a long time, holding her coffee, trying to process everything that had happened in the past 12 hours. Her life had been turned completely upside down. Michael was gone. She had an apartment worth millions. And Dante Moretti, the most dangerous man in Chicago, was looking at her like she hung the moon. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely, utterly overwhelming. Emma forced herself out of bed, moving slowly to avoid aggravating her ribs. The closet Dante had mentioned was a walk-in, and it was full of women's clothes. All in her size, she realized with surprise. All with the tags still on. She chose simple jeans and a soft blue sweater, dressing carefully. Her face in the mirror was a mess. Both eyes were black and blue now. Her lip was split, and there were finger-shaped bruises on her neck. But underneath the damage, she could see something new in her expression. Hope. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur. Emma moved into Michael's, her apartment, with help from Marco, who turned out to be surprisingly funny for someone who looked like he could break a man in half. The apartment was beautiful, but full of Michael's things, so Emma hired an estate sale company to clear it out. She kept nothing of his. Dante called every day. Sometimes it was just to check in, make sure she was healing. Other times they talked for hours. He told her about growing up in the family business, the pressure to be perfect, the weight of carrying a legacy he hadn't chosen. She told him about her mother, about the slow heartbreak of watching someone forget you piece by piece, about her dreams of maybe going back to school someday, finishing the degree she'd abandoned when her mom got sick. He never pushed, never demanded, but he was always there. And slowly, carefully, Emma felt herself beginning to trust again. 4 weeks after that terrible night, Dante finally asked her to dinner. Emma spent 2 hours getting ready, her hands shaking as she applied makeup over the fading bruises. The black eyes were gone now, just yellow-green shadows that foundation mostly covered. The split lip had healed. She almost looked like herself again. The restaurant was small and intimate, the kind of place where everyone spoke in hushed tones and the waiters moved like ghosts. Dante stood when she arrived, and the look on his face made her breath catch. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He did. The suit he wore was obviously custom, dark charcoal that made his gray eyes almost silver, but it was the way he looked at her that made Emma's heart race, like she was the only person in the room, like she mattered. They talked through dinner, the conversation flowing easily. Dante told her about a new business venture. A legitimate one, he assured her with a wry smile. She told him about the real estate classes she'd been looking into, the idea that maybe she could flip houses, use the apartment money to build something of her own. "I think that's brilliant," Dante said, his eyes warm. "You have good instincts. You'd be excellent at it." "You barely know me," Emma protested. "I know enough." He reached across the table, his hand palm up. An invitation, not a demand. Emma hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and sure. "I know you're brave," he said quietly. "I know you're loyal. You protected my brother even after everything he'd done. I know you're smart and resourceful, and I know that every day I don't see you feels incomplete." Emma's throat was tight. "Dante." "I'm not asking for promises," he continued. "I know it's too soon. I know you're still healing, but I need you to know that I'm serious about this, about you." His gray eyes met hers. "I want to be the man who makes you feel safe, the man you turn to when things are hard, the man who gets to watch you build your empire and be proud that you chose him." "You really mean that?" Emma whispered. It wasn't a question. Every word. Emma's eyes were burning. When was the last time someone had spoken to her like this? When was the last time she'd felt valued instead of tolerated? "I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm scared of trusting again. I'm scared of getting hurt. I'm scared that this is too good to be true, and I'll wake up and find out it was all a dream." Dante stood, moving around the table to crouch beside her chair. He took both her hands in his. "I can't promise I'll never hurt you," he said quietly. "I'm not perfect, Emma. I have a temper. I'm controlling sometimes. I live in a world that's violent and complicated. But I can promise that I will never, ever raise my hand to you. I will never make you feel small. And if I mess up, I will listen when you tell me." His thumbs traced gentle circles on the backs of her hands. "I will spend every day earning your trust. That's my promise to you." Emma felt tears spilling down her cheeks. "Why me?" she whispered. "You could have anyone." "Because you're the only one I want," Dante said simply. "From the moment I saw you standing in my penthouse, with blood on your face and defiance in your eyes, I was done. You could have lied. You could have protected Michael. But you told me the truth even though you were terrified. That kind of courage," he shook his head, "that's rare, Emma. You're rare." Emma leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his. "I want to try," she whispered. "I want to believe in this." "Then believe," Dante murmured. "I'll do the rest." They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing the same air, the restaurant fading away until it was just the two of them. Then Dante stood, pulling Emma to her feet. "Come with me," he said. "There's something I want to show you." He drove them to a building in Lincoln Park, pulling into an underground garage. Emma followed him to the elevator, her hand in his, trying to calm her racing heart. They rode up in silence, and when the doors opened, Dante led her down a hallway to a door at the end. "I bought this last week," he said, pulling out a key. "I wanted to wait to show you until I knew you were ready." He opened the door, and Emma gasped. The apartment was smaller than the one she'd inherited from Michael, but it was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the park, hardwood floors, an open kitchen with marble counters, and it was completely empty except for a single envelope on the kitchen island. "What is this?" Emma whispered. "Security," Dante said. "Independence. A fresh start." He picked up the envelope and held it out to her. "The deed is in your name. The building has 24-hour security and a doorman. It's yours, Emma. No strings attached. If you want to move in tomorrow, you can. If you want to keep the apartment Michael gave you and rent this one out, you can do that too. But I wanted you to have options. I wanted you to know that no matter what happens between us, you have a safe place that's completely yours." Emma took the envelope with shaking hands. She opened it, seeing the legal documents inside. Her name, her address, her property. "I don't know what to say," she managed. "Say you'll let me take you on more dates," Dante said, a slight smile playing at his lips. "Say you'll let me prove to you that this is real, that I'm not going anywhere." Emma looked up at him. This complicated, dangerous, surprisingly gentle man who'd turned her world upside down, who'd protected her when he had no reason to, who'd given her safety and freedom and choices. "I have a better idea," she said softly. "What's that?" "Kiss me." Dante's eyes darkened. "Emma, if I kiss you, I'm not going to want to stop." "Then don't." He moved slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. His hands came up to cup her face, gentle despite their strength. His thumbs traced her cheekbones, and Emma's eyes fluttered closed. When his lips met hers, it was nothing like Michael's kisses. There was no demand in it, no possession, just tenderness and promise, and barely restrained hunger. Emma melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, and Dante made a low sound in the back of his throat. He kissed her like she was precious. Like she was everything. And Emma felt something inside her chest crack open, something that had been locked down tight for 3 years. Hope, trust, the possibility of happiness. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered. "No pressure, no expectations. I just want to hold you while you sleep." Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. They ended up back at Dante's penthouse, curled together on his massive bed. Dante held her carefully, mindful of her still healing ribs, and Emma felt safer than she had in years. His heartbeat was steady under her ear, and his fingers traced lazy patterns on her back. "Tell me something true," Emma murmured. "Like what?" "Anything. Something you've never told anyone else." Dante was quiet for a long moment. "I was afraid," he finally said. "That night, when I saw you bleeding, I was afraid I'd be too late, that you'd be another person I failed to protect." His arms tightened around her. "I can't fail you, Emma. I won't survive it." Emma's eyes burned. She tilted her head up, pressing a kiss to his jaw. "You didn't fail me? You saved me?" "We saved each other," Dante corrected quietly, and as Emma drifted off to sleep, she thought maybe he was right. Maybe that was what love was supposed to be. Not one person rescuing another, but 2 people choosing each other, protecting each other, building something new together from the ashes of what came before. 6 months later, Emma stood in the living room of her Lincoln Park apartment, the one Dante had given her, though she'd long since stopped thinking of it as his gift and started thinking of it as home. She was studying paint samples, trying to decide between 2 shades of gray for the accent wall, when there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find Dante holding a bottle of wine and looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Hi," she said, smiling. "I thought you had that meeting with your accountant?" "I did. It ran short." He stepped inside, setting the wine down. "I wanted to see you." Emma moved into his arms automatically, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne. "Good meeting?" "Productive." He pulled back slightly, his gray eyes searching her face. "Walk with me?" "Of course." They walked to the park, hand in hand, the early evening sun casting everything in gold. Emma had learned Dante's silences over the past months. This one was weighted, important. Finally, he led her to a bench overlooking the pond and pulled her down beside him. I need to tell you something, he said. Emma's stomach clenched. Okay? My father called this morning. Dante's expression was carefully neutral. He's officially retiring. The family voted, and I'm taking over as the head of the entire operation. Not just Chicago. Everything. Emma squeezed his hand. That's huge. How do you feel? Terrified, Dante admitted. It's everything I've been working toward, but it's also... He trailed off. It's dangerous, Emma. More dangerous than what I've been doing. There will be threats. Attempts on my life. People who want to use my weaknesses against me. I understand, Emma said quietly, though her heart was pounding. They'd talked about this possibility. She'd known what she was getting into when she'd chosen to be with him. No, you don't. Dante turned to face her fully. Because you're my weakness, Emma. You're the one thing in this world that could bring me to my knees. And every enemy I have will figure that out eventually. Emma felt cold despite the warm evening. Are you breaking up with me? What? No. Dante looked horrified. No, I'm asking you to marry me. Emma's brain short-circuited. You're what? Dante reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it, revealing a stunning diamond ring, simple and elegant. Exactly what Emma would have chosen for herself. I'm asking you to marry me, he repeated. I know it's fast. I know this life is complicated and dangerous, but I also know that I love you. I know that you make me want to be better, and I know that facing this future without you is unthinkable. His voice softened. Emma Collins, will you marry me? Will you let me protect you and stand beside you and build something real with you? Emma's hands were shaking. Tears were streaming down her face. You love me? Desperately, Dante said. I have since that first night. I just didn't want to scare you away by saying it. I love you too, Emma whispered. I think I have for months. I was just afraid to admit it. So is that a yes? Dante's voice was carefully controlled, but she could see the vulnerability in his eyes. Yes, Emma said. Yes, of course, yes. Dante's smile was blinding. He pulled the ring from the box and slid it onto her finger, his hands surprisingly steady. Then he pulled her into his arms and kissed her, deep and possessive and full of promise. When they broke apart, Emma was laughing and crying at the same time. There's more, Dante said. I want to do this right. I want a real wedding, not some courthouse thing. I want your mother there. I want my family there. I want everyone to know that you're mine, and I'm yours. Emma's throat was tight. My mother doesn't remember me anymore. She might not remember you, Dante said gently, but she'll feel the love in that room. She'll see you happy. That matters. Emma threw her arms around his neck, and Dante held her close, rocking her gently. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this, he murmured against her hair. That's my promise to you. I know, Emma whispered back. I trust you. And she did. Completely. This man who'd avenged her when his own brother had hurt her, who'd given her safety and freedom and choices, who'd courted her patiently and shown her what real love looked like. They sat on that bench until the sun set, Emma's head on Dante's shoulder, the diamond on her finger catching the last rays of light. And for the first time in years, Emma wasn't afraid of the future. She was excited for it, because she wasn't facing it alone. The wedding took place 3 months later in a private garden in Lake Forest. Emma wore a simple white dress that made her look like an angel, and Dante couldn't take his eyes off her as she walked down the aisle. Her mother was there, in a wheelchair, and though her eyes were confused, she smiled when she saw Emma. That was enough. The ceremony was small, but elegant. Just family and close friends. Marco stood as Dante's best man, and Emma's cousin Sarah, who'd reappeared in her life once it was safe to do so, stood as her maid of honor. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, there was only supportive silence. When Dante slid the wedding band onto Emma's finger, his hand was steady and sure. And when the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Dante kissed Emma like she was the most precious thing in his world. Because she was. The reception was held at the Inferno, the club where Emma had once worked coat check and where her new life had truly begun. Dante had transformed the space, thousands of white flowers, candles everywhere, music that made people want to dance and laugh and celebrate. During their first dance, Dante pulled Emma close and whispered in her ear, "No regrets?" Emma looked up at him, this dangerous, complicated, surprisingly tender man who'd become her husband, who'd protected her, who'd chosen her over blood, who'd given her a life she'd never dreamed possible. "Not a single one," she whispered back. And as they swayed together surrounded by people who loved them, Emma thought about that terrible night 6 months ago. The blood on marble floors, the fear and pain and desperation. She thought about how sometimes the worst moments of your life lead to the best ones. How sometimes you have to break completely before you can heal properly. She thought about second chances and new beginnings, and the strange paths that lead us to where we're meant to be. But mostly, she just thought about Dante. About the future they'd build together. About love that protects instead of destroys. About finding safety in the most unexpected place. "I love you," she murmured against his chest. "I love you more," Dante replied, "and I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." As the music swelled and the guests cheered, and the candles flickered in the dim light of the Inferno, Emma closed her eyes and let herself be happy. Because she'd survived. She'd escaped. She'd found her way from darkness into light. And she'd found love in the process. Real love. The kind that heals instead of hurts. The kind that sets you free instead of trapping you. The kind that makes you brave enough to say yes to forever. As for Michael, he remained in Sicily, working in the family's overseas operations. Emma heard through Marco that he'd asked about her once, in the early days after the wedding. Dante had personally called him and explained, in very clear terms, that Emma was no longer his concern, that she was protected, cherished, untouchable. Michael never asked again. And Emma? She started her real estate business, flipping houses with an eye for potential that surprised even her. She visited her mother every week, sitting by her bedside and telling her stories about her life. Her mother rarely responded, but sometimes she'd smile, and Emma would pretend it was recognition instead of just a pleasant moment. She learned to love Dante's world, the danger and complexity and all. She learned which questions not to ask and which loyalties mattered most. But mostly, she just learned to be happy. Because happiness, Emma discovered, wasn't about having a perfect life. It was about finding someone who made the imperfect parts bearable. Someone who stood beside you when things got hard. Someone who chose you every single day, no matter what. And every night, when Dante pulled her close and whispered that he loved her, Emma knew she'd made the right choice. She'd asked a dangerous man for help, and he'd given her everything.